Hey, Mitch.
Oh, hey, Ed, how are you?
I'm fantastic. Happy Life Day.
Happy Life Day to you, buddy. I got the shirt. You polishing your orb?
I always polish my orb on a Saturday morning. You know my routine. Hey,
Well, I'm so excited because you said we're going to talk about the Star Wars Holiday Special with a special guest. I'm hoping it's itchy.
oh, it is a little itchy. It's these polyester sweaters. I don't know how you
No,
Americans
not
wear them all
not
the
the
time.
sweater. The guy that played Itchy, somebody that was on the Holiday Special, huh?
No. We don't have itchy, I'm afraid.
B. Arthur, yeah.
Sadly, she's no longer with us.
Harvey Korman,
He's no longer with us. But we do have someone who's going to talk all about a disturbance in the force. We've got Kozak.
Telly Savalas is still alive.
No, that's Kojak. No,
Oh,
I'm talking about Kozak.
the Night Stalker. Oh my God,
Oh,
Darren.
that's
Yeah.
Kolchak. This is Steve Kozak. He's one of the directors. He's also the producer and the author of A Disturbance in the Force that looks at why the Star Wars Holiday Special happened.
Well, Ed, in the immortal words of Han Solo, punch it.
Hi, this is Ed Dollister,
This is Mitch Halleck.
and welcome to another exciting episode of Mitch and Ed's Excellent Adventure. If it's your first time here, thanks so much for joining us. If you are a regular viewer, thanks for coming back again. And a big welcome to all our new subscribers. Our last episode on the Herculoids is like blown up, which is fantastic. So it's great to see so many new people. We've got a special show today, but before we get into that, Mitch, how can you find out a little bit more about what we do here?
Oh, Ed, it's easy as taking the biggest motion picture of all time in the 70s and turning it into one of the most hated holiday specials in the history of television. All you got to do is, I'm just kidding, is hit the subscribe button on the below, and you will be subscribed to the Mitch and Ed Excellent Adventure, and follow Ed and I as we go back into the past, looking at TV, movies, and more right here on YouTube, and hit the notification button, and you'll be alerted every time Ed and I go on another trip. So, Ed, what do we have in the agenda today?
Well, as you alluded to, we have spoken about the Star Wars Holiday Special in one of our previous episodes, and we are thrilled to have our very first guest on Mitch and Ed's Excellent Adventure, Steve Kozak. Steve's a director, he's a producer, he's an author, and he's intimately involved in A Disturbance in the Force, which is looking at the Star Wars Holiday Special and how it all began. So, Steve, welcome so much to the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mitch and Ed. Privilege.
So, Steve, how did you get involved in this project?
Well, so I saw it when I was a kid. I mean, I hate to admit it. My partner's a little younger than me, and he's always making a point of saying that he was like in fifth grade or something. No, he wasn't even born. I watched it and I liked it, but television was so different back then. There was such a low expectation for television. I mean, like the example I always think of is the year before, which a lot of people don't know this, a year before the holiday special, the same production company produced the Bing Crosby special, which had special guest David Bowie.
Mm-hmm.
So they produced that amazing holiday moment, and then a year later brought us the Star Wars holiday special. And just that is an example, I think, is a perfect example, because like I was a huge David Bowie fan at the time. I was out of my head that he was going to be on the show. And of course, when you get to the show, he sings two songs, neither of which I really care about. But you know what? I was satisfied. I felt like that's all I got, because television was so broken up. These variety shows in the time they had one television set in their house. So everyone sat together and watched it. So they had to kind of find a way for everyone to be represented, everyone to have some reason to watch. So, it was at the Star Wars Holiday Special, you had Art Carney for the older people, you had Diane Carroll for the TNA, you had, Jefferson Starship for the kids.
Mm-hmm.
And we all kind of got our little helping of television that was specifically geared towards us, but no one actually got a full viewing experience because the whole thing was watered down in order to kind of to attract everyone. Does that make any sense?
Yeah. I'm
Absolutely. And
gonna
I
ask.
think, yeah,
Okay.
you go, Mitch.
I was gonna say, I gotta ask, was the dynamic and the thinking behind this did they think they were going into making a holiday classic that would be on television perpetually year after year, like a Perry Como or an Andy Williams? Was that the thinking that we are going to make a Star Wars holiday special that'll be on for the next 20 years and everyone's going to grow up with it? Was that the genesis of the idea?
That really was one of the reasons why one of the writers, Lenny Rips, had said yes, because he didn't think necessarily Perry Como or Andy Williams. He thought that this would be like the perennial, the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and Santa Claus is coming to town. He thought that that would be in that circle, which is even weirder, that you would see that 2-hour special once a year. I mean, I can't even imagine that on network TV once a year as a special treat, So yeah, no, that was the thinking. They really thought that they were going to get some, I mean, whoever those people there are that put together the Rankin Bass cartoons. I mean, I can't even imagine the kind of money you made off royalties every year on network TV. So that's what he was hoping for, but it didn't happen.
And I suppose for younger people today watching this, they don't realize probably that variety specials were the norm on television back in the 70s. I was always a fan of that sort of show. I loved the Donnie and Marie specials, the show that they had in their Star Wars special. I thought that was really cool. And we had the Brady Bunch variety hour and all those sort of things, Sonny and Cher. So it wasn't a strange sort of concept back then. Now looking back though, you sort of think, really, what were they thinking? How did they convince all the cast to come back? That's what I'd like to know.
Yeah, that was most of them had turned him down, had turned Lucas down. They all read the script and they just said, I'm not going to do this. And he basically begged them and explained to them that, and each of them all have said in different interviews that this is how he explained it, that Lucas just said, I'm trying to keep the word alive, because the second movie, Empire Strikes Back, obviously was funded with Lucas's own money. So he had a lot more writing. It was a lot more riskier. And back in those days, even the biggest movie of all time, I mean, Jaws was the biggest movie of all time before Star Wars, and that sequel was a complete catastrophe. So actually, it wasn't a bomb, but I mean, it was a critically maligned film. And so, of course, he was worried about, is anyone going to even remember Star Wars in 3 years? It seems insane, even me looking back, because I lived at that time and I remember how insane the summer was, the 77, with the madness of Star Wars, how anyone could forget about Star Wars. But when you have your own money in the system and everything's kind of timed to when the toys would finally be available a year and a half later, then you could see why he was so nervous about that investment. So this was one of those things that just everyone did. And, they didn't have reality shows. They didn't do sitcoms really. I mean, this was the format that everyone did. At one point, there was 2/3 of the TV schedule, the primetime TV schedule, was variety shows. You did mention some of the worst shows, though, that you said you liked. I actually am a big defender of Donnie and Marie, but that Star Wars thing was quite horrific, as well as the Brady Bunch Variety Hour.
I remember that. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was
They
unbelievable.
always get pushed in the pool at the end of the episode.
Oh, yes. They get pushed in the pool. It was that stupid ongoing joke. It was so stupid.
No, but there was
whoever told anyone that Barry Williams was star material.
Hey.
They tried so hard to launch him as a rock star.
That's
with
right,
the Johnny
Bravo
thing.
wasn't he?
Bravo, yeah.
And I always thought he was, I mean, I don't know how to rate men, but he always just seemed to me like kind of a really weird looking dude.
Yeah.
And he just thought he was so cool. And some of the stuff that he did on the Brady Bunch Variety Hour is quite amazing.
No, but I remember the time you talk about, like Carol Burnett was on every Saturday night, and she had like an hour-long show with music, guests, and all that. And then we had Sonny and Cher. There was a lot of good ones. There was Sonny and
Yeah, no,
Cher.
there was absolutely good
Yeah,
ones. Yeah.
yeah,
But they weren't but the Brady Bunch wasn't on the good part of the
no, it
spectrum.
was
Yeah, that's
kind of
all I'm saying.
cheesy.
That's all I'm
No,
saying.
I thought the worst one was Ken Barry in Wow, which was a summer replacement. Ken Barry was on F Troop
F
and then
Troop.
on
Yeah.
Mama's Family, but he had his own little. I liked it, but I was like 10 years old. What did I
See,
know?
I remember Wow.
Yeah, see, it was a
Yeah,
summer
yeah.
replacement. Well, I was going to say, when you talk about the Star Wars special and Lucas went around and told the actors, I didn't realize Lucas put the money up for this special, or was CBS giving him a blank check? Who paid for this? Was this a Lucasfilm limited production?
Well, CBS wanted the special, so they paid a production company, Smith Hemian Productions, to put together a show. So he was given, I don't know, I mean, they were given $1 million budget for that
Oh,
for that 2 hour show.
was that a lot back then? I mean,
It was a lot of money back then. I mean, considering a variety show, normally wouldn't have the kind of costs incurred in this. Like, as I get into the book and we get into the documentary a little bit, the amount of overtime and double time and golden time and double golden time that they were spending sitting around doing nothing was like mind blowing. They shot the whole 3/4 of the budget in 3 days. And so that was really the beginning of the end for
what
them.
did they film then? What was the big money spent on that? The Wookiees?
They were filming the first 4 scenes. They filmed the cantina scene,
Oh,
which was a big scene. That's a 20-minute scene in the special. The acrobats,
Oh, yes.
and then the Julia Child thing,
oof.
and then Jefferson Starship. Those were 4 things that they shot in 3 days. And when you look at the money, the overtime was so insane because there's 100 people. They had 100 union people because this was shot. This was not shot in a normal TV studio. This was shot in a film studio, where they needed to have the height because of the treehouse.
Mm-hmm.
It was so huge. So they needed the height. So they had to get a film studio, which was much more expensive
Wow.
because it was under IATSE, which was the film at the time. So those union people, there was 100 people there. So, you think about it, if they started at 4 to 5 a.m., they were all leaving at 1, 2, 3 in the morning,
Wow.
3 days in a row.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think about that money with overtime, there's the first 8 hours, then there's the next 4 hours, which is time and a half. Then there's the next 4 hours, which is double time. Then if you go past midnight, it's another double. So you had people at one point that were making they were supposed to be making $40 an hour, let's say, are making $280 an hour,
Crap.
just sitting there, as someone said, just sitting there holding a hammer.
Well, I mean, wasn't there a producer or somebody on hand with the accountants going, "What's going on here? We're spending, we're bleeding money here. What? How did that happen? How did that go?"
I think in my opinion, the whole thing was just they just didn't know what they were getting into.
Mm-hmm.
This was a show that really should have been produced by Sid and Marty Krofft, who knew what it was like to put people in big costumes.
Mhm.
I mean, some of the people that described these costumes that they were in the Wookiee, whether it was the Wookiees or the cantina scene with the aliens, they're in. First of all, it's the summer. They're indoors. They can't use air conditioning because they can't do with that noise. Now they're pumping in smoke, that dry ice kind of
Oof.
carbony kind of smell. And there's bright lights. I mean, some of the people said that some of the tops of those Klieg lights,
Yeah.
like sometimes they would say that some of the tops plastic of the mask was melting onto their
Wow.
head. And for some reason they were obsessed with keeping them in full costume the entire day, which is that's just bad television. That's just bad.
Mm-hmm.
But the guy who was kind of behind that was a guy named David Akumba, who had never done television like this. He had been a TV musical, like a music TV director, and it directed little mini documentaries for Joni Mitchell and Warren, not Warren,
Did he ask for the job, or was he just picked by the studio or something? I mean, how did he get
Lucas pushed him in. So Lucas
Lucas
wanted
did.
him. And the reason why is because Lucas and a guy named Charlie Lippincott, who had kind of pushed this whole project, they were like wanting things. They knew how weird variety TV was. And they're like, let's try to do it a little different. We don't want to just kind of come into the Andy Williams part of variety TV. They were like committed from the beginning, like, we're going to do it different. But the problem was is that they just didn't have the money, they didn't have the preparation, and they wanted to do things differently, but they just didn't have the time.
Yeah.
You know, he was shooting it kind of like a documentary, one camera at a time, while there was four other cameras. You know, at a television studio, you have 4 or 5 cameras, and he wouldn't use them. So they were like wasting time, and he was just kind of wandering around. He was very trying to be spontaneous and trying to be creative, but that format just did not allow for that kind of freedom. It was how much can you squeeze into this next 3 hours? You know,
you would think they would have like a second unit while he's doing the principal stuff. Like they'd have somebody else covering the Harrison Ford and the Mark Hamill and the Carrie Fisher insets and stuff. I mean, did they have a second unit director, or was this all Mr. Cumby's doing everything?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I never, and I don't know if second units were even that popular at the time, because I don't think they would have used a second unit director or a crew in these types of shows, because everything was just, you know, when you did these shows, they would like, it was just like a sound stage, and there it is. There's a huge floor, and they'd put up some little designs or whatever, and they just do a tap dance number, and that was it. And so they didn't have, not only did they have room, everything was kind of just done chronologically. So yeah, that would have been a good thing, but I think they probably realized that after the fact. I'll bet you somewhere midway, someone said, you know, while we were doing this, I mean, there was one cameraman that said she had been called in. She remembers very little about it, but she just worked for like a couple hours, and she just sat on the side and shot pictures of things. So there's a little bit of a second union feel, but that was probably towards the end when they realized, hey, we should be doing this with, if he's going to be stubborn and want to use one camera, why don't we do something else and send the other 4 cameras in another room or something? But
and the whole
you
concept,
should have been producing it.
And the whole concept with having the Wookiee family and no dialogue. I think at one point they wanted them to talk or have, you know, did they ever think of having subtitles or something? Because it sort of slows, it's sort of a strange, I mean, as you said, you know, it was strange, it was certainly different, but it's sort of odd to have the Wookiee family at the center without any dialogue for a lot of the start of that.
You know, there's so much that's what did you say, odd? I mean, there's so much that's odd about this production. But yeah, I mean, that's one of the first things that I mean, I honestly don't know if the dialogue was worthy of subtitles. I mean, when you look, I mean, that's been a big issue, but it's like, I don't really think still, if they had audio coming out or subtitles, that it would have made any difference. It would have still sucked. You know, it just was, you know, it just was, I mean, I've never really thought of that before you mentioned it, but there were definitely issues that TV did not use subtitles back in those days, because there was, as Bruce Valanche says, there was this feeling that Americans specifically didn't read subtitles. And if they knew there was subtitles, apparently they wouldn't watch it, which doesn't happen now with The Mandalorian. The Mandalorian has tons of subtitles, or when you can't, or even some of the last, I think Last Jedi had some subtitles. I mean,
even Star Wars had them with the Greedo scene in the bar.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But that wasn't 20 minutes of Greedo watching you know, Diane Carroll on some holo.
No. You know what? I was thinking that too. You said Lucas was probably distracted because this is so they're filming this in the summer of 78 to air in November of that year. So he's got to be at that point in pre-production mode for The Empire Strikes Back. I'm going to say he was probably hands off. I don't know how much George Lucas actually was on the set, or if he ever showed up on the set, or was he watching in the editing room, or he really just didn't care, and he said, "Look, I got this movie I got to go make, and it's a big sequel. I don't really care what you do."
Well, here's my take on what Lucas did. It was Lucas's idea. It was coming from Lucasfilm. They wanted to do a special. Lucas wrote a treatment for this, which is absolutely amazing. There should be a whole separate project just on the bizarre treatment. And have you seen the film or read the book either?
I've seen your documentary on it, and I saw there was a segment where Ralph McQuarrie, the great illustrator and the pre-production artist on the Star Wars and a lot of Lucasfilm, they found after he passed away, I think the treatment you're speaking of, along with a lot of his preliminary sketches and such. And
Right.
was there odd things like Han Solo was supposed to be married to a Wookiee at one point, or it was
Well,
just
no, that's not in
about?
the treatment. That was in like the backstory that he revealed to
Oh, okay.
one of the writers. But the treatment included an appearance by Raquel Welch, who
Oh,
was going to be this imperial spy. I mean, just the mindset. So he drove he wanted to do the special. He wrote the treatment. He sat with the writers for about 12 hours. He he let them use all of his stuff, all of his costumes and all that stuff. He asked and maneuvered, negotiated with the stars to be in this, begged them. That's a lot. He negotiated for his friend from college, David Akumba, to direct the film, the special. That's a lot of hands-on producing.
yeah.
My biggest issue, I think, with Lucas is that, and I think hopefully we really make this point in the film and in the book, that it's it's all great to try and experiment, and we applaud the concept of trying something different. And even as weird as the holiday special is, at least it's an adventure. It's an experiment.
Yeah.
But him not like owning it is frustrating. Like, because every like 5 years in the whole 45 years since this, it seems to be that his comments seem to be further and further. He's not associated. The first couple years, it was like, that was a mistake. Yeah, I really regret that. Da, da, da. Then it's like, nowadays it's like, I don't even know what the company was that wanted to do it. They were doing this show, they were doing this, and he really passes it off. And I find that bothersome, because you can take a hit.
Yeah.
You can take a hit. Don't blame this on all the people at this special. As Lenny Rips says, he knew that this was a mess. And if this was a film, he could have jumped in and he would have fixed it. But because it was a television show and he had dealing with The Empire Strikes Back, he was stuck. It was just, it was not going his way. He probably never saw that there was going to be Art Carney in it, and all these other bizarre people. But then again, in his treatment, he wanted Raquel Welch to be in it, which would make it even weirder.
Who wouldn't? I mean, anyway, that's another story.
I don't blame him there, but yeah.
But
I
find the Raquel Welch thing totally fascinating, because Raquel Welch in 1978, although amazing to look at, and she was still performing, she was not like the hot ticket item of the 1978.
No,
she
was on posters. She was on Mork from Mork and Mindy.
Well, that was
she appeared.
like
but that was after. That was years later, and I think that my point is that the real Raquel Welch made it famous in the late 60s. That's when she was very famous.
I think Mother Jugs and Speed was her high point in the 70s, and that was pretty much it at that
point. And so by 1978, Farrah Fawcett, Charlie's Angels, Wonder Woman, those were the posters that were up for kids, for guys.
True.
She had lost a lot of her. So I just find it so Lucas-y.
Yeah.
Someone that age would go like, let's do Raquel Welch instead of like, let's get Cheryl Ladd, or let's get someone
I keep
who's
telling
targeted towards my audience.
I keep telling Ed, when is Elle McPherson coming on the show? And he doesn't know what I'm talking about because it's of its time.
Hey, I was anyway.
No, I know. But you
But
know
it's
what the
funny.
funny thing,
It's funny. Lucas has, sort of disowned that, because when you think about today, and like I'm drinking from a Life Day mug, and Mitch has got
I've
a
got my
Life
Life Day
Day.
shirt.
There's
Yeah.
figures there. There's the animated Boba Fett figure that you can get. So some people are embracing it. Just
Well, the fans
not Lucas.
acknowledged it.
Yeah.
The fan. I mean, we put up with everything from the Phantom Menace, so we're diehards. It's called a cult. I mean, we'll actually look beyond everything. And when you just said you're surprised that Lucas disowned it, Steve, you're talking about a guy who about 8 years later would make Howard the Duck. I mean, let's not go there. The guy's not always hitting them out of the ballpark. He's hitting a lot of foul balls now and then as well.
No pun intended.
No, yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
But you mentioned Charlie Lippincott. I had the good fortune of meeting Mr. Lippincott. He used to live right up here in New England, and he was a guest at my show when we did the 40th anniversary of Star Wars, and he actually came down on a panel with Roy Thomas, who wrote the comic book adaptation for Marvel, and Howard Chaykin, who was the artist on the Star Wars adaptation. And it was the first time all three of them had gotten together since the 1976 San Diego Comic-Con, when he used to go around trying to drum up interest for Star Wars, because nobody knew what it was. So Lippincott, as much as you talk about Lucas, he was also very good at marketing and being a showman. So I could see a lot of his fingers in the cake getting this on to CBS, getting it there. Because Kenner was probably launching the toys at this point. So I'm thinking, they're thinking November, Christmas time. I remember watching it, but I don't remember if there was a lot of ads for Kenner toys during the special or not, because it seems like an opportune moment if you're going to do this. Like, get the kids now and say, hey, Mom, I want that X-Wing fighter. I want the TIE fighter. So do you know, in your research, did Kenner step up? Were they one of the sponsors of the show?
Kenner never put out an ad for, there's one Star Wars, I can't even remember this now. There's one Star Wars toy ad in the entire 2 hours.
That's crazy.
And I found a really interesting part in the book that I included, which is, it's a little, might be out there, but there were these two communications experts that came up with this thing called a hole in the archive. And what they had kind of made a point of is that in the in the 70s, 80s, when libraries were taking magazines and ripping them out and archiving them, they were only archiving the articles and they weren't archiving the ads.
Yeah.
And they were pleading to the libraries to say, hey, the ads that were displayed are just as interesting, if not more important, than the articles that had been duplicated in other different magazines. And there was a guy from some Star Wars fan who said that the hole in the archive, actually the videotape of the Star Wars holiday special, the 2-hour special with all the commercials in it, tells us more about who we are than anything. It almost kind of helps put a ceiling on the hole in the archive. And when you look and he evaluates all of the commercials, there was only 3 or 4 toy commercials in that entire 2 hours.
That's great.
A lot of it is like, so it's almost like CBS had no clue what they were doing. No clue. Because they should have been having,
oh yeah,
not just Kenner toys, but other toys.
Everything.
I mean, this is, but they didn't. And the listing is like, body wash, and you can't believe it. I actually totaled them up in the book to see who had written it. But you had said something right before that about the commercials.
About the Kenner toy commercials?
Well, yeah, I guess I was just saying that. Yeah, the Kenner.
No, I was saying, because the only time I thought I saw a tie-in was when Lumpy, who's Chewbacca's son,
yes,
he's playing with a little X-Wing fighter, and I remember as a kid watching that, going, "Oh, they've got X-Wing fighter toys. When are we getting ours and stuff?" So I would just remember that, like, where was all the rest of the stuff?
And when you think about it, it's like Kenner might not have needed to take an ad out,
yeah,
because they had. it was inorganically placed into the scene. I mean,
Yeah.
what better example do you want to have to sell something than the first 5 minutes of the special, which is when all the kids are probably watching,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
of the kids playing with it, and then Lumpy or the grandfather's building one.
Itchy. Yeah. Yeah.
Itchy, thank you very much.
Yeah. He's whittling. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah,
that.
I mean, it's amazing the product placement that was there. I mean, that's
Yeah.
genius.
You would have thought like
Genius.
Radio Shack would have sponsored it, because there's that annoying, very long scene with Harvey Korman instructing folks how to use a computer or whatever a console. It went on forever.
Yeah.
And I just remember watching that, and I'm like, oh my God, this is boring. And I was like 10 or 11 years old, falling asleep. So
Yeah.
Radio Shack would have been a prime sponsor for this thing. You know?
Yes. But yeah, that whole it's almost like one of the first times that you actually saw product placement in work.
Yeah.
I mean, in action like that, you know.
Yeah. By the way, speaking of Harvey Korman, like I mentioned, Carol Burnett. He was a fixture on TV. I knew who Harvey Korman was. B. Arthur, I knew from Maude, who was on, and Art Carney, of course, was legendary for the Honeymooners and such too. That's an very odd assortment of co-stars. I mean, because you've got like Harrison Ford, Mark, they're all like 35 and younger, and then here comes this group of all over 50. I don't know how old B. Arthur was at the time, but I'm pretty sure Carney and Corman were in their 50s or so. I mean, did you say they got that for the older crowd so the parents could watch that and the kiddies could watch, Luke and Han and Leia? I mean, was that the idea? Did somebody actually have a thought behind the casting on this thing, or?
Well, they had been told when
Yeah.
Lucasfilm started talking with CBS, they were been promised names of like Cher,
Really?
Mikhail Baryshnikov,
Really?
all these other big names. But I think that's kind of like where it could have been a, what's that term?
Where was Cher going to pop up?
Oh, Cher was supposed to be Marmia.
Oh, the Diane Carroll part?
Yes.
Wow, that's really
And there's
something.
a couple other in the book. We really get into it about how that there was a potential that Grace Slick might have been that
yes.
part.
Oh, instead of
which
just doing that
totally-
Jefferson Airplane bit? Yeah.
Or maybe in addition.
Huh.
Because there's a second sketch of Marmia that I got Bob Mackey he would just pulled it out. He goes to his assistant, isn't there another sketch we had? Remember, we didn't do anything with it. They canceled or something.
Yeah.
And it's a different Marmia. She looks different. She was like a dancer. And some people say that was supposed to be for Cher. Some people don't. He doesn't remember it specifically as Cher, but he also remembers that it couldn't have been anyone else.
Yeah.
They were thinking it'd be Cher, Grace Slick. There was a story about Grace Slick being in that dress. So, so yeah, there was a lot of other people, but the reality is that CBS just had this amazing opening of like, oh, there's B. Arthur. She's no longer on Maude. you're gonna have B. Arthur. We'll set you up. But the problem is the people that did these specials were also old.
Yeah.
So they're like, oh, Art Carney will be great. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, not realizing that like
Nobody knew who he was.
these are kids.
Yeah, they should have got Steve Martin or someone like that who
Oh
was,
my
at
God,
the top of
yeah.
his,
Well, and if you saw the doc, you know that there's a Robin Williams connection because the director was getting frustrated with hearing all these old names, and he went out and he started going through comedy clubs, and he found Robin Williams in August of 1978. And he said he'd be amazing. He talked to him. He wanted to be interested in the project. In fact, he even told him, I just did a pilot for this kind of space film show as well. He brings him in, and then the producers go, oh, we're looking for name talent. Sorry, we're not looking for nobodies. And they excused him. And like literally like 6 weeks later, Mork and Mindy premieres, and he becomes giant,
huge. Yeah.
And I believe that he would have probably been the Art Carney character. That's my guess.
Yeah, that would have been a little better. Not much better, though, because overall, the story, Ed and I, when we did a review of it, we talked about what we would have cut out and what we would have kept. And we kind of took that 2 hours and did like a phantom edit. And we brought it down to almost like an hour. So there is someone somewhat resemblance of a not so bad special in there if you just cut out a lot of the fat and trimmed a lot.
Right.
At its core, it's like, okay, this could be kind of entertaining, kind of, but
Ben Burt said that. He's actually
oh,
said
did he?
that if that we could cut that could be probably cut into something salvageable if it was
Yeah,
cut down.
I
definitely.
think the
'Cause there's
biggest
so
crime is
much
that it's
dead
dull.
time.
It's just a little dull.
It just
You
goes
know?
on too long. Yeah, like
Yeah.
the cooking sketch with Harvey Korman, the computer
Right.
sketch I mentioned. It's like it's fine, but it's just like 3 times longer than it should be. It's like, no, you need a
Well,
little editing.
yeah, it almost seems like it's timed along a soap opera. It has a soap opera sense to it when
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
in
I can
that
see
thing.
that. Yeah.
You know, it just has that slow timing, just trotting along.
Yeah.
And but you know, you mentioned Charlie Lippincott, and I will
Yes.
tell you this: one of the most proud things I have about the project, that it gives me goosebumps about. When I first reached out to Charlie Lippincott, he was very, very persnickety. And
Yeah.
I'm sure you saw that too. He
Oh,
was
I dealt
very,
with them.
very
Yeah.
persnickety.
Yeah. It was a trick to get him here at the show. And
Yeah,
you can go
very, very
online
different.
actually and watch his final interview. He passed away during the COVID, but
Right.
there's a YouTube about an hour long panel they filmed at my Terrificon back in 2018, 2017. You could watch him. Even at the older age, and he wasn't feeling too well towards the end, but he still had a little bit of snarkiness to him. So yeah, he was
Well,
he was something to deal with. Yeah.
yeah, and I was so challenged by him. I immediately was like turned off by him because I'm like,
Yeah.
oh,
I could see that.
he was
Yeah.
like responding to me on my private emails through posting on his page. He would
Yeah.
post on his page his comments to me. And I will tell you that he turned me off so much. I just was like, but
Oh,
slowly but surely, I started learning about him and what
yeah.
he went through and how he was so completely unappreciated by
Mhm.
Lucasfilm. Completely unappreciated. No one talks about, they talk about Joe Johnston, they talk about Ralph
Oh
McQuarrie,
no.
they talk about John Williams. No one ever mentions Charlie Lippincott.
He was the cheerleader. If it
This
wasn't for
is the
that
guy
guy.
that did
Yeah.
it when it
Yeah.
was nothing,
Yep.
you know. And I interviewed, and so I, I remember the day that our film, the documentary premiered at South by Southwest, I'm reading all these reviews, and we got tremendous reviews that first day.
Yeah.
And I remember I'm walking across the street in Austin, and I'm just reading these reviews. And all of a sudden, my publisher calls me, who had just read the first draft of the book. And he said, I love the book. I love this. He said, what you have done is you have written a love letter to Charlie Lippincott.
Oh,
And
that's great.
that was the most wonderful thing because this guy was so maligned, treated so unfairly. I have an interview in the book. I don't know if he realized I was actually like recording,
Yeah.
writing a book, whatever. I mean, a guy named Charlie, he was the CEO, Charlie Weber.
Yeah.
He was the CEO. And I asked him about Charlie Lippincott, and he just dismissed him.
Huh.
Yeah, he was just a PR guy
No, he was much
and
more
all
than
this
that. Yeah.
stuff. And I just kept saying, well, he did this. And he's like, no, he didn't. I'm like, yeah, he did.
Oh
He
yeah, he
did the
did the
book
deal
deal
with
before the
Marvel.
movie
Yeah,
came out.
brokered that.
He's
Yes,
like,
he did.
no, that
No,
didn't
no,
happen.
no,
You got
no,
your
no.
facts wrong. I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
telling you, I don't have my facts wrong. And so in the book, I really kind of finish up
Nice.
his story. And he was so, in fact, I remember telling this guy Weber, I said,
Yeah.
he was so dismissive of him. And I said, I could teach a class just on what Charlie Lippincott did.
Oh yeah,
I could
absolutely.
teach
Yeah.
a class.
Yeah. And he went on to other stuff too. It wasn't just Star Wars. He was involved. It might not be a great hit, but the Judge Dredd movie, Alien, the movie that came
Yeah.
out. He was in.
But I would be just as persnickety after all that dismissiveness.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the one line that he says, and sorry to, I
No,
get
go ahead,
obsessed
because
with
he doesn't
Charlie.
get enough credit.
No.
Working.
This Weber guy said, you know, the company outgrew him. That was the problem.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, the company outgrew the guy behind Star Wars, like 6 months into its its theatrical release.
Yeah.
What else were you doing that were everyone's riding the Star Wars
Yeah.
train that he freaking conducted?
Yeah,
you
he
know?
was the P.T. Barnum of Star Wars.
Oh my
basically. Yeah.
gosh. So
Because for all of Lucas's genius and his creativity, and he's a great filmmaker, but he's very introverted behind the scenes. He
Right.
would not be on stage
Right.
selling this. He would not be, at a comic convention. You wouldn't see George Lucas out there, bells and whistles and, fireworks and yellow t-shirts with the logo. That was Lippincott. That was the genius of him. And I could see him going to CBS and saying this is going to be a family tradition that's going to be watched for 20 years, like The Wizard of Oz or Sound of Music. That's his spin on it. I cannot imagine George Lucas. He doesn't have the charisma and the showmanship to have done that stuff. As much as I love George Lucas, and I can tell you right now, he is not the guy that was out there going to bat and hitting the Star Wars PR campaign. That was Lippincott through and through.
Right.
Yeah.
And when people say it was the word of mouth, which it was, I mean, I remember my friends coming to my house.
He was the mouth, buddy. He was the mouth.
No, but I mean, like, you can't get a word of mouth going.
Yeah.
Unless you put people in the seats the first 2 weeks, which was an unbelievable accomplishment. Yeah. It had no stars.
Nope.
Science fiction films
about it.
But no stars. The guy from Frankenstein.
Yeah, my mom. When we saw it on opening day, there was a program that they sold for $1.50, and my mom was going through it before the movie started, and she was trying to see who the actors were, and she said, "Well, that's Debbie Reynolds' daughter. I know who that is, and I know Alec Guinness from Dr. Zhivago because my mom loved that Omar Sharif movie, and she kind of knew who Peter Cushing was from the horror picture. But that was it. I mean, we went into that blind. We're like, who the hell is?"
And plus, science fiction films were not making money. I mean,
no,
2001
Logan's
had
Run.
barely started to make money again. So I just find it, it's all great to say it's word of mouth, but you have to get the people in the seats to then start talking about it. It wouldn't have happened, the word of mouth sensation, because it was like, I remember friends of mine coming to my house and going, "We're going to go see Star Wars. Come on, you got to come with us. It's amazing."
I saw it 13 times. Every
that
chance
summer
I
was
get.
insane. Yeah,
Somebody who wanted to go see it, like a cousin or an uncle, didn't see it. I'll go, and you just jumped on board to go see it again. Yeah.
It's funny when I talk about these days. I was at a screening a couple of months ago, and I was like saying, the one unfortunate thing, like the co-director Jeremy Kuhn, missed out. He didn't get, and his generation did not have that experience of going to a movie and seeing that trench scene at the end of Star Wars in a theater.
Yeah.
Holy mackerel. That is like the most insane experience I ever.
Well,
and it never got old.
I remember the opening shot with the Star Destroyer coming across the screen.
Yes,
it just seemed to take forever. And people in the audience, I was 10 years old or whatever.
Right.
And people were gasping like, oh, they couldn't believe what they were seeing. They're like,
yeah, it's unlike anything anyone's ever seen before. It was real.
Really, it was so exciting. But yeah, I mean, to describe the feeling of that is so hard for people to understand what it was like to see that in a theater with the sense around and going through those trenches and those. Oh my gosh, that scene when Han and Luke are shooting in the opposite ends and they're in that fight. Oh my gosh.
I mean, the prison cell block.
Yes.
No. I meant the
the Death Star attack?
No, the first thing when they're shooting outside, remember they've left somewhere.
Oh, when they're at the Mos Eisley spaceport when they're taking off and the stormtroopers show up?
No, and they're flying. They're flying on the Millennium Falcon, and Luke and you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, when they escape
they escape the Death Star.
And they're on those really cool things, and they're spinning around on this. Oh my god!
Here we come is I think the John Williams track.
Here they come.
Hear it and go,
hurry up! Don't get cocky.
Yeah, and I can hear the music in my head already as soon as you said "din." And the little display that we thought was amazing, this little grid, red and yellow. Right. Oh my god, that's computer graphics. That's something to see.
And part of the charm of this film, was kind of reliving and bringing people back to that time frame with variety shows and movie theaters. And,
So Steve, how did A Disturbance in the Force come to fruition?
Well, I had an association at the time, a trade association of people. I work at Jimmy Kimmel Live, so I do like footage licensing and like for clips and stills, and so I have an association of people that do that, different shows, documentaries, and we were looking to revisit, like the Emmys takes they do something called For Your Consideration, where they take a really great film and they dissect it and they have a live event and the original filmmakers. So I thought, how about For Your Reconsideration? And we explore the movies and TV shows that were bad. And as I was putting people together for this one, which seemed the obvious one, I realized I knew a lot of the people in it because my old man had produced a lot of those Bob Hope specials. And it's a very small niche of people. A lot of them were very close family friends of mine. And that's when I realized I don't want to do a live event. I'll waste this. A lot of these people are, a couple of them have passed away since the film was made. And Jeremy came in and immediately invested in the project. And we started shooting really seriously, very quickly. And thanks to him, we actually have interviews of people that have passed away since or gone completely blind. And so anyway, so that's how it kind of came together. Just it was really going through the TV variety world.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's the other thing about the documentary and the book as well, that it's less about Star Wars. It's more about this world that they kind of landed in,
Mm-hmm.
this crazy world of crazy TV specials and, Wayne Newton at SeaWorld and, just wacky, 2 months before, no, a month before, was Kiss meets Phantom of the Kiss.
Kiss, the Phantom of the Amusement Park or whatever.
Kiss
Yes.
meets the Phantom of the Park. You're right.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. NBC movie of the week.
Awful.
Yeah.
Awful. But
What?
It was the same thing.
It was the greatest movie ever. Okay. I have the Marvel adaptation done in Kiss's blood, man.
Wow. I mean,
Blood
see, and it's the same thing with the Bowie thing and the Han Solo thing. Like, even when the movie is whole pitched about Kiss, Kiss is in it so little.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they do a song at the end, but I mean, like, they're in it. So, and you just wanted to hear him talk.
Yeah.
I just want to hear him speak.
Yeah.
You get like, there's 2 minutes of it. It's
No,
all about
Gene
the
Simmons
story
talks like a
and
dragon or a demon. Yeah, it's great.
We have to do that on our show, Mitch. That's
We gotta do
one
the
of our
Kiss.
up
Yeah.
and coming ones.
I
think.
actually, the writer, I mean, it's in my mind because the writer of a book on that just contacted me because it's kind of in the same.
Oh yeah.
Same world. It's really closer to Kiss meets Phantom of the Park than really anything. And I never really made that connection in the book or the film.
Yeah.
That's the closest thing to the Star Wars holiday special, is that Kiss meets Phantom of the Park, as well as the Ringo Starr special.
Oh,
earlier that year, where it was like a thing on Prince and the Pauper, and he wants to leave his rock star world behind and be a regular person. And then Art Carney's his father, and John Ritter's his manager. And it's just,
you got to remember, this is a time when like the Bee Gees did Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club, and Ed probably thinks that's the greatest movie ever. And I remember my sister
the second greatest,
me to see.
and it's got, look, hey, Steve Martin was in that one, and
Steve Martin was in that one.
Peter Frampton as well.
I was the biggest Peter Frampton fan in the world when I went to go see that. And what's so pathetic is, again, I was disappointed, but I still went to see it again.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I have to say, that scene with Aerosmith where Steve Tyler throws Frampton off the top of the big,
I think so.
Remember, they're at the end, one of them throws the other. I mean, they're both fighting, which is hysterical. Yeah. Peter Frampton and Steve Tyler are fighting with each other, and one throws the other off and I think they die. And then there's the Golden Slumbers thing. And or maybe the girlfriend gets followed. I can't remember.
I'm just thinking now, if we could ever go back in time, like forget saving the president or killing Hitler, go back to 78 somehow get the Village People involved with the Star Wars Holiday Special, and then you've got a real time capsule of the period of time that we're talking about. I'm like, why weren't they in the Cantina sequence? That could have been like mind blowing.
Yes, yes. Well, I have to tell you, there's a guy named Rick Wagner.
Hmm.
Rick Wagner we interviewed him in the documentary. He played the Walrus Man.
Oh, okay.
So he's the one who's dancing with B. Arthur. He's a great guy. This guy was in Sergeant Pepper, Can't Stop the Music,
Oh, Ed's favorite.
Roller Derby USA.
Yes.
No.
What?
Can't
Roller Boogie?
Skate
Kansas
Town
City
USA
Bombers?
or Roller Boogie.
Skate Town
Roller
USA,
Boogie.
yeah.
Roller Boogie.
Roller
Yeah,
Boogie, yep.
yeah.
Roller
Was he in
Boogie.
Car Wash too?
Can't Stop the Music.
Xanadu? Was he in Xanadu?
He was in
Grease?
Xanadu. He was in Xanadu and Sergeant Pepper. And I'm just like,
Wow.
That's
why
Ed's
has
hero.
no one done just a film about you? Like, oh
Ed
my
was-
gosh.
Ed will star as him in the documentary.
Amazing. I just like said, how did you get cast in all? I said, were you in anything like
Good.
decent? You poor guy. But yeah, Rick
Yeah.
Wagner.
Wow.
And look him up. If you look him up on IMDb, there's like, and he didn't do, it's not like he also did, Caddyshack and whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just these 4 horrific films.
Brief moment
Just
in
there.
history. Yeah, yeah.
It's almost like
See-
the next was like, no, that's too good. I'm gonna retire.
Well, speaking of too good, there's one thing that everyone agrees upon, no matter how much they malign the Star Wars Holiday Special,
Yes.
was the awesome Boba Fett cartoon. And when I just talked about toys, all I remember is Boba Fett was on that, and that's all we talked about. We went back to the
Yeah.
playground. We kind of like talked to each other, like, what the hell was the grandfather watching? What was going on with Lumpy? Why did Mark Hamill look so weird with that makeup? He looked like
Makeup.
Sandy Duncan. But the only thing we all agreed upon was that Boba Fett thing was amazing. I mean, looking at the artwork now, it was very weird looking.
It was
kinda like
stylized.
Heavy Metal.
That
It was like Heavy Metal magazine. That movie came out a couple years later. Heavy Metal.
Mobius.
Yes.
Mobius,
Mobius,
exactly.
yeah.
That's what it was
So
inspired by. And Nelvana
who
did
wrote-
it, I think, didn't they? Nelvana
Did
was the,
Lucas
company.
did Lucas write that cartoon?
Lucas wrote that treatment and he wrote
Really?
the script to that 10-minute cartoon. And I have the actual script to that.
Now,
So
what
yeah,
happened?
he totally did that. And a writer named Rod Warren
Yeah.
took that script and then figured out what stuff they would need to animate. And then that got sent to Nelvana,
Right.
who are those amazing animators who have a great story on their own, who from Canada who animated it.
Now, why
Yeah,
did they
that's
why did they get picked? And why weren't they like the go-to to go like, oh, we'll go to Hanna-Barbera or we'll go to that other fellow that we always talk about, Filmation, I believe it was.
Film
Scheimer
Roman?
and Filmation.
Lou
Film
Schneider. Yeah,
Roman?
why didn't they just go to like a local LA animator? Whose idea was it to go to Nelvana? Because it's very avant-garde. I don't think they were like or they're not a household name. It's not Walt Disney or something.
No one's ever asked that question, and it opens up a whole new
I always
thing.
wondered it as a kid. I'm like, where the hell these people come from? You know?
Yeah, so they were friends. The first director, David Akamba, was
Yeah.
from Toronto.
Oh, okay.
So he knew of these guys. They'd done something called a Cosmic Christmas, which is kind of it was like just like the year before they had done something, and the animation was kind of cool on it.
Yeah.
And they Akamba pitched them to Lucas, and Lucas kind of liked what they saw. So these guys, one of the guys flew out from Toronto with no money
Yeah.
to meet Lucas in Northern California. And his story is quite amazing, which isn't really documented much. He, well, first of all, the 3 of them were working in Toronto right off the what is it? It's the Ontario River or something like that. It's a big ocean kind of store, like
Thunder Bay.
I'm such a
Oh,
I'm so uneducated.
you go
It's
up
like
to Lake
It's
Superior,
like an
Lake
ocean
Erie,
or
Lake
something like that.
Champlain,
Yeah, something like
St.
that.
Lawrence Seaway. I don't know.
So it's a very it's like being on the San Francisco Bay, very salty.
Yeah, I think it's
air
Thunder
and-
Bay. I might be
Yeah,
wrong.
probably. So they shared an office on the same floor as a smelting company.
Huh.
Like, can you imagine someone having BO or something like that
Well,
and then thinking about someone who is putting together fish once a week and canning it and smell, so I mean that's what they were working on, these poor kids.
uh-huh.
One of them, they flew him to Lucas, and when Lucas pitched him, I thought one of the funniest little anecdotes was the fact that Lucas then took him out to Taco Bell.
Oh, Jesus
Like,
God.
he remembers that. The one of the animators remembers that they went to Taco Bell afterwards.
No, it was just such an unusual cartoon. And like I said, that is on Disney Plus. They
Yeah.
don't do the holiday special, but they pulled, I think it's called something Wookiee, the Reluctant Wookiee or whatever they renamed it. And it's on now. You can watch that, the Ewoks animated stuff, the droids from the 80s.
Yep.
And it still stands up. I mean, it's as weird looking as it is to today's, people that want photorealistic artwork from, Pixar. That cartoon always stood the test of time. And like I said, it introduced Boba Fett, and they've redone that figure. Like Ed'll tell you, there's action figures and there's statues based on that. And then I see cosplayers coming to my shows. They'll have the rifle
Right,
that popped up
right.
in The Mandalorian or that thing.
Yes.
So that on its own is very memorable. Everybody that you talk to about Star Wars Holiday Special, they go, "What a piece of crap!" But they always go, "But the Boba Fett cartoon was really cool."
Right.
Yeah.
They'll always agree on that
Well,
one.
what's
So
interesting too is that I think that they've come out with the Chewbacca in his red robes action
Mhm.
figure. That's available.
yeah, I
But
have that
what I
actually.
find
Yeah,
really interesting about that no one has, I have never heard anyone mention this, that, well, it's kind of them, well, we're acknowledging this because it came from Life Day, and that's what we're focusing on. But they take a still from the Star Wars
yeah,
Holiday Special of them all lined up. That's quite powerful for them to embrace even one frame of
yeah.
the actual Star Wars, because that's not part of the cartoon. That's
No,
part of the special that sucks. And there it is. They're
no, literally,
merchandising it.
it's on
They're
the
merchandising it.
it's on the box art. I have it upstairs. You're gonna laugh at me, but they actually came out with a Life Day advent calendar. It might be for the kids, but I go, what kid's gonna know about this because they weren't even born then? It opens up, it's like a pop-up, and this little tree shows up that's supposed to be from Kashyyyk, the Wookiee planet.
Right.
And each day of Advent, as you get towards Christmas, you open it up and there's a little different ornament, and it tells the story of the whole Life Day celebration and what it means to this people in the Star Wars galaxy and the history of it. Nowhere do they say, "Oh, by the way, this is all based on a horrific holiday special that George Lucas himself denies and wants to burn every copy if he can ever find." That's the other thing I want to ask you. When you did your special and your documentary, did you have to use that famous YouTube video that was recorded off the WCBS TV in New York? Because I remember watching Rollin Smith, who was our local newscaster here in Connecticut, New York, and he pops up. He's the "Don't Fight" or "Fight the Frizzies," which was a little bumper they used for the 11 o'clock news, and that became a cult thing. And can you not get a clean copy for a documentary, or did you have to go off of YouTube or wherever you dug it up from a comic convention? I mean, is there a clean copy of this anywhere? Does Disney have one in the vault somewhere?
Well, they must have a clean copy of it because that's what they used to produce to release the Reluctant Wookiee cartoon.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
they
see,
must
you're
have,
right. Yeah. So
they
Lucas
must
has
have
it somewhere.
gone, yeah, yeah. So they must have had a master in house. Um, I knew the producer of the film, who did not go on camera. He's 93. He doesn't
Wow.
remember anything, but he did have, I always get this. So at the time of the 70s, they would use 2-inch masters. Very rare would they use 1-inch masters at that time, but they would use 2-inch masters to edit from. And then you would make a 1-inch edit
Yeah.
master, and then you would make 3/4. Those were the VHSs, DVDs of the time. The 3/4 were the cheap screeners,
Yeah.
but it was really good quality. It was 3/4 inch. I mean, it was a big, and it was encased in a really, really safe plastic casing, so that, if you had that master and it was straight off of the master. So I have that copy.
Yeah.
So I have a copy of the 2-inch master that was dubbed to 3/4 inch. And I have a copy of that digitized.
Nice.
What's interesting is that Jeremy, was the editor, is much more technically savvy on another solar system, pardon the pun, than I am, had found another clean copy, whether it's the WCBS one, there's a one from Baltimore,
Yeah.
that actually was better in certain ways than the actual master that was literally from the production company.
Oh,
So, and there are times when he pulls from the master I got from under the table from the production company, and when he uses the aspect ratio is what it is. It's just not a
yeah.
quality thing. It's just that it was just the ratio is just completely different. So there's more people in the background
Right.
that you
right.
can see. When it doesn't matter, he might have used, this other version that was
Yeah,
better
yeah,
quality.
yeah.
So he bounced around between those two and just really picked the best copies that were there.
And when you did your documentary, I know it's filled. Like I said, I've watched it. It's got Kevin Smith. It's got Seth Green. It's got Kyle Newman, who's a friend of Ed and I's from long ago when we started doing the IndieCast. He did a movie called Fanboys as well. He's involved with the production. There's a lot of folks there. Everyone, like I said, of a certain age has fond memories of it as long as horrific memories. They go, yeah, I remember waiting for it. It was anticipation. And then when you saw it, you were like, somebody blew up the family dog in front of you. It was just like, what did I just watch? But, and Adam Goldberg, who I know you've worked with too on the show, the Goldbergs and stuff, it's why hasn't this died? Why hasn't the Star Wars special really ever gone away? It's become legendary. It's a myth, but it seems everybody, I've let my kids watch it. They were not thrilled, but they sat through it, but they know about Life Day and such. So what do you think it is about this special that we watch this, but we don't watch the Donnie Marie one, which, as Ed is right, is a lot cooler with Chris Christopherson as Han Solo? Why is this?
No, it's Ed. You need to check yourself into some kind of treatment program right now.
You're not the first
absolutely
person
it
to
was
say that,
cool.
Steve. It's all
No,
right.
no. I'm
No,
concerned
wait a
for
minute.
you
The
now,
Osmond-
Ed. I
the
am
Osmond
concerned
brothers-
for you.
The Osmond brothers are on it. They're dressed
I love
as
the
stormtroopers.
Osmonds. Crazy,
They were all.
crazy
I don't think.
horses. Oh my gosh, fantastic
I
stuff.
don't think Jimmy Osmond's on that one. Maybe he was there. Oh, but wait a minute, real quick. I know obviously you're not going to talk to, and you can go back to my question why this thing doesn't die. You're not going to talk to B. Arthur, Art Carney. They're no longer with us. Harrison Ford, you'd have to rip his fingernails out or pay him $1 gazillion. He's not going to talk. No one's going to talk about it. But what about the kid that played Lumpy? He always looked like Adam Rich to me, God rest his soul. But I don't know. Did you try to find those people? Where's Mala? Where's the actor that played Itchy? I mean,
Yeah.
where are those
Yeah.
people?
So Lumpy was played by a midget named a little person, sorry,
Oh.
named Patty Maloney. And she did a lot of on-air stuff in the 70s. She was on every Croft music, Sid Marty Croft show.
Yeah.
And she would be recognizable. She was like the one woman,
like Billy
little person.
Barty.
She was like Billy Barty.
Yeah.
And Billy
Yeah.
Barty was on a lot of those shows. So the guy who played, so Mala is played by a guy.
Really?
Mickey Morton.
I did not know that.
Lumpy, who's a boy, is played by a girl, a woman.
And Itchy played himself.
And Itchy, who's supposed to be a grandfather, was played like by a 28-year-old actor named, I'm losing it. I can't remember his name right
Leonardo DiCaprio.
No. But Mickey Morton was like the heavy on the Monkees and those kind of shows.
Oh,
he was always like this tall guy, was like the mafia guy dressed in black or whatever.
Yeah.
You would recognize him. He was in a lot of stuff. But the guy who played Itchy was fascinating. I did reach out to his brother. He died fairly early.
Oh.
I believe it died in his. I guess he died in his 50s.
Oh man.
And he was very proud of this, that he could work in and he was a really good looking guy, and he did a lot of Love Boats and stuff like that.
His favorite.
Yeah.
but he had kind of a terrible upbringing, the brother told me,
Oh.
and he said he's very proud that he was able to be involved in Star Wars.
Mhm.
So
Oh.
yeah, that's where those people are. If there's anyone else I can think
Oh,
of.
so is the woman that played Lumpy, she's no longer with us?
No, she's alive. She just
Oh.
health was pretty bad. She lives in
Oh, okay.
Florida. I did speak to her. Now there is something. Do we put it in the doc? I can't even remember. Where she was dating during this. There's so many weird connections. She's dating Bob Denver at the time of the special.
Gilligan?
Gilligan. Gilligan met her because they were on a show together. And I can't remember. It was her. It was Bob Denver. It was after Gilligan's Island. I can't
Dusty's
remember the name of it.
Trails.
No, that's a
With
good
Forrest
guess.
Tucker?
No.
Oh,
no.
Chuck McCann, the space
Chuck
nut.
McCann was in it. Space
She
Nuts.
was the honker?
She
Far
was the
Out Space
honker.
Nuts?
Yes.
Oh my
yes,
God.
Yes.
Yeah, I
And
used to watch the Way Out Space.
So
Far Out,
yeah.
Far Out Space Nuts.
Far Out
so
Space.
the-
Well, because there was
Far
that
Out
other
Space
show with-
Nuts. Yes.
Yeah, there was
So-
Ruth Buzzy and another one too. So I'm like, wait a minute, that was the
I did all my learning on Far Out Space Nuts when I was working on the dock. So
okay.
yeah, I would say that it was so that was an amazing, just what a crazy, it just
So
seems like
Bob
such an off the
Denver's
wall.
girlfriend is Lumpy.
So he was dating her. In the movie, she's like in this TV show, I don't know, she's like a honker, whatever her name
Yeah,
is.
honker. Yeah,
Or
yeah.
his name is
yeah,
supposed to be.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, that was he was dating her. And then also an interesting twist we really didn't get into at all in the doc, which I really thought I could, but just like everything else, things didn't turn out as planned with
Yeah.
the person who had told me this story. There was a choreographer named David Winters, and he was a top dancing. He was dating at that time Linda Lovelace.
The Debbie Does Dallas.
Yes.
Lovelace?
No,
The
not
porn
the.
star?
I don't. She did. No, Linda Lovelace.
Oh,
did,
yeah,
Deep-
she was
Deep Throat, wasn't
Deep
she?
Throat.
Deep Throat. That's it. Yes.
So I've
And,
heard. So I've heard.
Yeah, and so if you just Google Linda Lovelace and David Winters, you'll see they were an item, and the
Really?
media knew who he was. He was kind of an off the wall. Well, I mean, anyone who dates a Deep Throat, there's got to be be something different about them. Let's just say
That's
that.
another show we haven't done
Let's
yet.
just
Exactly.
don't Google it on your
Don't
work
go to Deep Throat.
computer.
It might be the guy in the X-Files. That's another.
Right. But I remember even talking to Jeremy about it. Like, here's this story. Like, if this is really, like there was some incident, I guess we thought that we had thought originally that she had come to the set of the special.
Oh my.
Which would have been so amazing. Like,
oh yeah.
How could you add anything more weird to this than the woman from Deep Throat is actually helping out read lines? But it turned out it was at a different special with David Winters.
Wow.
But I remember even mentioning it to Jeremy, like going, gosh, I kind of hate to include this because now you got to explain to everyone who she is. And now you got to put a porno thing. And
she could have been Chewie's other sister, Sleazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I remember we were both feeling kind of like, do we really want to? No. And luckily, actually, it was great because it actually didn't pan out. But she still was dating him. I mean, that's pretty wild.
No. But going back to that question I had, what does everyone say? Why does this thing not die? Why are we still talking about?
Well, you mentioned it's a myth. It's not a myth. That's why it survived, because it really happened. It's something that really, really happened, and people can't believe that Lucas, who is such a control freak about every single thing in his career, how on earth did he just like hand this off to the producers of Donnie and Marie and say, "Hey, I'm going to go work on something else. You guys finish this up." I mean, maddening. It's the concept is so maddening. Is so maddening that they do that. And then when you think also about the fact that there was so many great, there was Bob Mackey doing costumes.
Yeah.
There's
costume designer.
Yeah. There's, the three writers that one of the composers is the guy that wrote the David Bowie song with Bing Crosby, wrote the Little Drummer Boy Peace on Earth thing. they're just top directors. The director is Steve Binder, who did the
Oh, the
Elvis
Elvis
Presley
special.
comeback special.
Yeah, absolutely. He's
The
famous.
comeback special. Very talented. I mean, the people involved in this were just top-notch people. And as Lenny Rips, one of the writers, said, it's kind of like everyone did a good weld on the Titanic, but the thing still hit an iceberg.
Iceberg, yeah.
So that's kind of the analogy. Like, it's almost like it was a dream team
Yeah,
that needed a Chuck Daly
to bring it
to
together.
kind of
Yeah.
get everyone together.
Yeah. What were the ratings like on this when it hit? Because I remember I watched, everybody in the playground watched it. We got back to school and everybody was talking about it. We didn't say we loved it, but we all saw it. So how did it do when it premiered?
It was 13 million people, which was okay. It's probably it's probably mid-level ratings at the time.
That's about the
It lost to
population
the
of
second
Australia in 1978. So
I think it was on in the middle of the week for some reason, like a Thursday or Friday, if I remember. I don't know why.
It was on a Friday.
It was a Friday. Okay, I do remember. Yeah, it was something at the
It
end
was
of
the
the week.
Friday before Thanksgiving.
Oh, so yeah, everybody's home. Everybody's gonna watch it. That's the great weekend, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really know how that works, because I know a lot of times, sometimes like Saturday night shows didn't do well because people would go out. So
Well, Friday
hit and
was
miss.
like Friday was the up against. Let me see, Friday night, 1978. Yeah, the $6 million Man. You had Donnie Marie. CBS would have had Wonder Woman and Hulk, but they weren't on that night.
Wow! Holy mackerel!
Hey man, I didn't go out.
Wow!
I was a kid. 8
You
o'clock.
remember the Saturday night lineup?
Oh yeah, the Saturday night lineup was All in the Family, Bob Newhart, MASH once in a while. Carol Burnett was on at 10 o'clock, and there was something else in between there. Maybe it was.
No, you messed up. Sorry.
Wait,
It
okay.
was All in the Family,
Yes.
MASH,
MASH,
Mary Tyler Moore,
Bob Newhart,
Carol
Burnett.
Burnett.
There you go. Okay.
And then at some point, I think on Friday night at 10 o'clock was the weirdest show.
Night
Do you
Stalker?
remember Love? What'd you say?
The Night Stalker was on earlier in the 70s
Oh,
on Friday.
Kolchak. Yeah, I got
Kolchak,
abused
the
for
Night
that.
Stalker. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, that's my favorite.
No, but I'm thinking of, do you remember Love American Style?
Yes, Love American.
I remember it was always, they always pitched it like it was so dirty. And
Oh yeah, doing it in the red, white,
and it
and
was
blue.
so nothing. It was so nothing.
I got this better for you, Steve. I'm old enough to remember Friday night meant the Brady Bunch, then the Partridge Family, then there was something on, and then
you missed it again. I'm
Come
very
on.
disappointed, man. It was Brady Bunch.
Brady Bunch.
And then at 9 o'clock, it was Partridge Family. But at 8:30, it was
Hot L Baltimore.
Nanny and the Professor.
Oh, I love that show.
Oh, that's early
Yes,
70s.
yes.
Okay. Richard Long. Yep.
Richard Long and Juliet Mills.
Did you know that we actually did get a Star Wars Holiday Special action figure? The Snaggletooth from Star Wars that was released in 1978. The picture is not actually of Snaggletooth. It's from the Star Wars Holiday Special on the action figure. So technically, Snaggletooth is from the Star Wars Holiday Special. So
because he's the taller one, right?
The tall, yeah. They released the blue. Sears released the blue Snaggletooth.
Sears catalog,
but the photo on the 1978
Right,
action
was
figure
different
is from
color.
The Star Wars,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's from the Star Wars Holiday Special. So there you go.
There you go.
I thought I'd better.
Yeah, there's all these
something.
weird things where it should have been, and there's all these people have. I know Kevin Anderson has the science fiction author has adapted Myrmia into a whole storyline of this woman. I think her name is Kwai Ku, who had a whole planet of people that looked like her, and she actually winds up creating the Death Star, helping to, the storyline in Rogue One where the other guy was helping.
Yeah.
She was actually before him. So there's all these people are always trying to throw in the holiday special and make it there's a great story. The guy who help me out. The guy who wrote Empire Strikes Back.
Oh, Don Bluth?
No, famous director writer wrote Grand Canyon.
Lawrence Kasdan.
Lawrence Kasdan.
Yeah.
His son wrote
Solo.
I believe wrote Solo, yes.
Yeah.
And so there's a story when he was writing Solo that he tried to put in like some reference to Lumpy in that, which would have made it
canon.
Which would have made it canon. and they caught it, but he
Well, no, it
tried.
is canon because it was mentioned in The Mandalorian. The very first episode, the guy that he's rounding up, the bounty, says, I have to get home because it's almost life day. So at that
Yeah.
point, boom, there you
Yeah,
go.
that's right. That's right. That's
And
right.
there was going to be a scene with Carrie Fisher singing the song, but they cut it out. It's a travesty, isn't it?
Well, her mom, of
Yeah.
course, Debbie Reynolds, was a huge singer. I wonder if
Mm.
that is that the only time Carrie Fisher ever sings on any film that we know of? Oh no, Under the Rainbow? No, I don't think she sang in that. So
Well,
this,
there's footage of her singing Bridge Over Troubled Water, which
Ah,
is when she was like 16 or 17,
oh,
opening up for her daughter, for her mother. And that's obviously ironic because she
because
winds
she
up
ended up, yeah, with Paul
marrying
Simon.
Paul Simon, you know. So yeah, in fact,
getting
there's a
weirder by the
story.
second, man. This is getting weirder by the minute.
Bruce Valanche tells a great story about how he had been with uh, um, how she came in and she wanted to sing the song River by Joni Mitchell. She was really into Joni Mitchell at the time. I can't think of
On
Skating
what,
Like
the
a
holiday
River
special?
on the holiday special. She wanted to sing that.
Well, at that point, why not? I mean, it wasn't gonna hurt it any.
So Valanche said we'll never get approval for that. So they got on the phone with, this is Valanche telling this, Carrie Fisher and him got on the phone at the Smithsonian offices and found a way into getting her on the phone, and they pitched her the idea, and
Yeah.
she was just like, ah, no, no, no. Like he says, she was screaming on the phone, like, no, no. But she probably thought it was a joke. But he did say they did ask permission for her to sing River, which maybe it would have been better. I don't know.
I don't know.
If only John Williams didn't scream on the phone, maybe that would have been.
Now, who wrote that? Now that is the lyrics to the Star Wars theme, officially.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Did John Williams write those words?
No, it's not. No, it's not. No, no. Ken and Mitzi Welch wrote those lyrics
Uh-huh. So
to
does that
the
mean every
Star
time
Wars.
Star Wars theme, do they get a check? I mean, it's not official. No?
I don't know how that
No,
works.
no, because I remember reading years ago that Gene Roddenberry from Star Trek fame wrote lyrics to the actual Star Trek theme song,
right,
only because if they played it somehow because of the union rules, he would get a check or a royalty check. That's what I'm thinking.
right.
But
These
I
Mills.
think that was after, that was not, that was at the time it was written, not after the fact. I don't
Okay, so
think,
they don't get money every time you hear the Star Wars thing.
I
Like,
might
hey,
write lyrics to a fifth of Beethoven, and then
I was gonna say I'm
I'll
gonna
just
write the
rake
Raiders
it
of
in.
Lost Ark.
Right. Well, the ownership is kind of coincidental, the way the ownership happened of the special, because it started off by saying, I mean, there are people at Smithsonian feel that they own it, and 20th Century Fox Television feels that they own it at one point. Lucasfilm feels that they owned it. What wound up happening is that everyone was always wondering who owns the Star Wars Holiday Special, because when the Lucasfilm deal was made, all those films went to Disney, except for Star Wars, which was owned by Fox.
Yep.
No one was 100% positive if Fox owned the special or Disney owned the special. So when Disney purchased Fox a couple of years after that, then it all just became, doesn't matter. Now it's all under the Disney umbrella. So,
well, like I said, if you look at the Disney catalog, I know I've given Ed a gift. He's got the mug. I got the advent calendar. I got the sweatshirt on.
I didn't get any gifts from you.
Disney is making money on a
This
life
is the
day.
gift, Steve. Well, you're welcome.
You got it. Yeah. I have a book over there all about Life Day. So somebody's cashing a check somewhere. I don't know if George isn't happy, but everybody else is making a dime on it. So
yeah.
Yeah, well, that's funny because Kyle Newman was so eloquent. Gosh, so eloquent the way he gave remarks for my book and the way he's interviewed in the special.
Yeah.
So eloquent. He has just a perfect way of explaining that, the Star Wars special is not only still alive, but now it's being merchandised. Like, they are just churning it up. And, he's very, just keeps referring to it as they're merchandising. It's not just accepting it. It's not just allowing it. They've taken it 20 steps further, and they are, all over Disney. And, I was at Barnes and Noble last week. There's all this Life Day stuff all over the place.
That's what I'm saying. They're getting their money
amazing
on this thing.
It's amazing.
There's a comic book. I just had it the other day. They came out, Marvel comic, all about Life Day. It was like a whole issue about Chewie's family and stuff. So.
Yeah.
Well, and one of the things that, Jonathan Rinsler, who we interviewed just before he died, was,
great guy.
Another very eloquent interview we did. That one was a spectacular event, talking to him right before he passed away. But he was like adamantly saying that, like, the problem is that he doesn't think that there was much damage that was due to anyone who worked on that special on the Lucasfilm side, because my contention has been, I don't think they really hated it then. It just was that it wasn't what they ideally have, but they didn't realize how horrific it was. When you look at it 40 years later and you see the fact that it's the same thing as that, oh my gosh, there's dancing stormtroopers and Donnie and Marie, and, Wayne Newton is singing to a love song to a whale. And I mean, that stuff was just such garbage that, but he says everyone survived. And the fact that a year later, Lucas allows Luke Skywalker and R2D2 and C-3PO to dance.
Yeah.
On the Muppet
dance on the Muppet Show.
Yes.
Right. Is like he wasn't feeling regretful. He wasn't like burying his head. He went and did worse. He allowed them to dance.
Wait a minute. We're neglecting connecting to your dad. I don't know if he was involved with that. Bob Hope did a skit with Mark Hamill as Luke Skywalker, and Hope was Darth Vader. Or it was some Star Wars bad sketch on a Bob Hope show in the 70s. I remember that one. He wasn't holding the grip that tightly. He was a little loosey-goosey with some of the
No, 3PO and R2 appeared on Sesame Street as well.
Yeah, I mean, they were. Yeah.
Right. So for him to be rewriting history and saying that, he hates it, he didn't hate it that bad. I don't think plus he didn't realize that it would pop up 20 years later on the internet.
Right.
He knew that there was, I don't think he even realized it had survived on 3/4 inch at the time, so.
It was melting. Anyway, you've talked about your book. You've talked about the documentary. I know I watched it because I saw it on Amazon Prime, but where can you get the book? Is it available right now? I mean,
it's Christmas. It's Christmas. We've missed Life Day, but it'll be a perfect gift for Christmas.
It's a perfect gift.
Look at that.
This just needs a bow on it.
It does.
It's available. Yeah, it's available through Amazon. It's available at bookstores, Barnes and Noble, independent bookstores have it. Yeah, it's doing okay. It's not doing anywhere near as well as the documentary, which I believe is still #1 on the Amazon documentary list. It's been that way for 4 weeks.
Well, I got my money. And now is it going to remain on Amazon after a while, or is it going to go into Netflix, or you don't know how it ends up?
We don't know. We're just taking it week by week. I mean, there's a lot of people, downloading it and watching it right now. Like, we'll just see where it goes.
Well, hopefully it'll be available in Australia at some point, because we can't get it on any streaming services yet. We can get the book, but not the documentary yet. So,
and
we'll get the book.
The book
is also on audio.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great, because I love listening to Audible and stuff.
Is it read by Lumpy?
Yeah, read by Mala.
No. It's read by a guy named Kirby Hayborn, who does he did Gone Girl. So yeah, Gone Girl, Star Wars Holiday Special. Yeah, it's same general genre.
Yeah. And I was going to say, there's a new opportunity for you, because I produce comic book conventions and pop culture. You could go on the circuit. You can now become one of the mainstays of the Star Wars universe, because you should go out, promote the book, promote the documentary, show it, answer questions, just like you were kind of
sign copies of the book. Yeah,
but sign copies of the book.
Yeah,
I do Day robe costumes when everyone wears the what do they call those things? Snuggies? They sell
The
that. They sell
yeah.
that on DisneyStore.com. You could buy the Snuggie that they wear, the red robe. So
Yeah. No, it's someone actually has reminded me of that. Like, yeah, this doesn't have to be a once a year thing. I mean, like, I mean, Star Wars people are into this, and certainly around the holidays. But yeah, I mean, I expect, yeah, I mean, I do get a lot of become, you know,
known.
there's a
The
couple of
nerd known.
Star Wars holiday experts now, and I guess I'm now among them.
You are among them. Yeah, it's a
And
big
I was
thing.
really, I have to say, like my kids, I have 6 boys, and one of which is named Lucas, which I always have to defend when saying I'm not a huge Star Wars fan.
Yeah,
But they're not as obsessive
I know.
about because I thought like, hey, I would think if I did something on the history of plastics,
Yeah.
that they would be remotely supportive of that. I'm like, this is about Star Wars. This is all you guys argue about is what's the best Star Wars film all day for hours into the middle of the night. They do it. And I'm like, but it's kind of hard to get there. So yeah,
Yeah.
I always remind them that I am in the Star Wars universe.
You are.
I'm part of it. I'm now part of all you guys. I'm part of the club now.
You are. Yeah.
And so, a little bit of respect, a little,
No. I know how that is. I got 2 boys, 25 and 23, and they're just like, they grew up with it. I think that's the rebellion part. They don't want to talk about it now. I'm like, what are you talking about? We used to have to watch it a million times. They go, no, you made us watch it. I'm like, oh, me.
Right. It's not their thing anymore.
It's
'Cause
not.
now it's not as cool because dad's into it.
Exactly.
It's like when we got on Facebook and they're like, yeah,
Yep.
I'm not really on Facebook.
Now they're
Because
on
my dad's
Instagram
on
now.
it. Yeah.
And then they're
Yeah,
going on to
exactly.
TikTok because
Yeah,
I'm going on
exactly.
Instagram.
Because they know we don't understand how TikTok works. So they'll just,
No, not at
they'll
all.
stay there. They'll stay there.
No,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
afraid.
I'm always happy to talk Star Wars with you guys. So feel
Oh,
free.
I appreciate that. Till our old age, we'll just be still. Hey, I remember when they merchandised Disney Life Day.
That's right.
Oh,
Well, yeah, who knows what they'll do in the future, whether they'll release it, but you can get A Disturbance in the Force, get the DVD, get the Blu-ray documentary, get the book for Christmas. It'll be a wonderful thing. Steve, it's been a real thrill having you on the show and telling your stories and talking a little bit more about the Disturbance in the Force. Can you is there any way people can contact you online, speaking of Facebook, or do you have a presence or anything like that?
Yeah, you could reach us at disturbanceintheforce.com.
Yep.
And that's
is that on Facebook too?
Yep, we're on Facebook.
Okay.
So
Cool. All right.
yeah. So any time anyone wants to reach out and ask questions about it or about appearances,
they will. All
let
right.
us know.
They will.
Awesome.
Well, it's been a pleasure
Awesome.
having you on the show. Thanks so much. I'm going to grab my Life Day orb here and do something
He's
with
got
it.
his
I don't know.
globe.
What do you
Look
do
at
with
you.
these things? Do you just hold on to it and
Polish
hope
your
it-
orb. Yeah.
It's
Are you-
it's firm. It's
Oh, that's
Oh
Oh my
good.
gosh. All right. All right. Here we go.
No.
There we go.
thanks,
no,
Steve.
I don't know much about the orbs. Sorry.
Yeah, you don't want to know about the orbs.
didn't-
Yeah.
That's all
I
right.
didn't want to
A
get
good
into that.
cream, they'll be right. It'll be
Yeah,
fine.
put some salve on it. You'll be fine.
All right.
rubbing.
Okay. Anyway.
So that's it for our interview with Steve. Fantastic to hear all about A Disturbance in the Force. Mitch, how can you find out about some of our other shows?
Well, Ed, you don't have to fly to Kashyyyk and fall in love with a crazy looking Wookiee. All you got to do is hit the subscribe button below, and you too could go on a trip to a galaxy far, far away or back in the past as Ed and I look at TV, shows, movies, and more from days gone by, all right here on Mitch and Ed's Excellent Adventure on YouTube.
So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.